Welcome back. You're still watching Good Morning Namibia. Now, Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans and a time for recognizing their central role in U.S. history. Also known as African American History Month, the event grew out of Negro History Week. Joining us via Zoom this morning is political analyst Dr. Cedric McCay. Good morning, sir, and welcome back to Good Morning Namibia.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm so happy to be with you.
Happy to have you. Are you well?
I'm well. In fact, I'm excited. I'm happy for this new year of 2023 and excited for our Black History Month events, which have, begun to roll in full motion just a few days ago. So yeah, it's a great time.
Fantastic. Let's get right into it. Could you give us a bit of background on Black History Month, please?
It's the story of the history of Africans is as old as time, I suppose. Africans have been with us since the beginning of humanity and human civilization. But when we come to this particular story of the Africans in North America, in this case, in particularly in the United States of America, we have a question of why do we need to tell this story? And part of the reason is because the story has been so poorly told by others. The story was not completely told by others. And so Dr. Woodson, coming from a fairly pedestrian and rather poor background, but because of his interest in reading and striving for education, knew the importance and the effect of history on a person's sense of identity, on a community's sense of self, and understood that when you tell the story of Africans to Africans, even in the diaspora, they would have a greater sense of their own achievements in the past, but a solid sense of their destiny for the future. So initially, it was just for one day. Just find one day on the calendar, and we would do it quickly, expand it into a week, and then later, it has grown into a month. But it's a time where, in fact, we don't do it the way Dr. Woodson had suggested. And so some of us who are in his organization, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, we call it ASALH, we know that Dr. Woodson guided us to use February as the crowning achievement of reviewing all of the work we had done the rest of the year. In fact, we do it the other way. Unfortunately, where we use February as the moment where we sort of cram into these 28, sometimes 29 days, a study of our history. Dr. Woodson said we should always be studying history, and in February should be the crowning achievement and our time for review to look back on the work that we had done, to look back on the work that talks about what have we achieved, what have we learned, what have we accomplished as a people, how have we moved as a people, and that's where Black history sort of has its origins. Today, it's a bit of an interesting story that has shifted. You have the African Americans who are sort of native to, if we would, the country of the United States, but there is a burgeoning populations of Africans from continent who have come to live in diaspora, and there are Africans from diaspora who have gone to live on the continent. And so now the stories are beginning to have a confluence, which is really rather beautiful. And in fact, rather normal. We would expect Africans to sort of share their stories and mix with themselves and with others. So we talk about the achievement. What have we done? What have we achieved? Because initially, this need was to reject the idea that Africans had not achieved and Africans had done nothing.
Doc, thank you very much for that comprehensive and critically important historical context. Now, as we know, and as you've stated, that Black History Month is an annual celebration. What is the significance of this continued celebration? Is the story still poorly told? Is the story still incompletely told?
Yeah, yes. In fact, we're still finding pretty robust opposition to the teaching of African history, even in the United States of America. We are not fully yet invested as a country and as a nation in sharing this story. I'll give you an example, very recent. The governor of Florida, DeSantis, who is very likely to be a presidential candidate, has decided, as he has somehow arranged the laws in the state of Florida to do so, has stricken African American history from the what they call the AP courses, the advanced placement courses. Those who are striving for early placement in college, university, the best students in our systems would sometimes take classes in high school to place them at a higher level in university when they arrive there. He's taken African American history out of the curriculum because he says that it wasn't offering so much. It was being used as a foil for other messages to denigrate the history of the United States, to denigrate the history of other peoples. And so the fight continues even in 2023. Yes, there's a need for it. Yes, there's a role and place there, and it continues to grow. Unfortunately, in some quarters and not lessened. So our work is very much before us. And you see, in response to this very incident, teachers of African American studies and teachers of African studies around high school level around the country had rejoiced that the College Board, the organization that writes the curriculum for these advanced placement courses, released the entire curriculum to the country. So now not only are teachers in Florida able to look at the curriculum who were in the AP courses or not in the AP courses, but teachers around the country have taken this curriculum and are now including it in their daily routine teaching of African American studies around the country. So there's some push and response even today as we're moving forward and talking about the important role that African Americans have played in the construction of our own country and the role that Africans have played in the construction of world civilization and humanity.
Doc, in line with this continuing fight, the theme for this year's commemoration is Black resistance. Let's please have regard to that theme for a moment.
You know, the on our website, Asala TV, ASALH TV, the organization of Dr. Woodson, we're looking at some examples of Black resistance. Just this evening, for us in the United States, we're yet on Sunday. Just this evening, there was a report done by a very interesting scholar who was at Harvard University at the time, doing work on Queen Nzinga and what would now be called Angola, talking about the resistance. And one scholar from Angola, speaking to African Americans, let's be clear about this. He's in Angola, speaking to African Americans and others who are going to participate in our research, talked about the importance that Africans in diaspora, particularly in the United States of America in this case, should know of the resistance fought and made on the continent to the imposition of slavery, to the imposition of colonization. That it wasn't some automatic agreement that those that others would come in and impose their will on Africans on the continent and then take Africans from the continent to the diaspora. But there was resistance, there was struggle. In many cases, there were some victories. In other cases, there were not always victories. There was some imposition of the will of outsiders. And so when you're in the diaspora, as we are, and we're looking at this, it's important for our young people to hear there was struggle, and your struggles today can be victorious. We have seen struggles here in our country. We would not have a right to vote without struggle. We know it wasn't a gift. We struggled for it and we gained it. We would not have the right to equal access to education in this country. My parents went to segregated schools, effectively apartheid schools. My parents. It was only in my generation and those who've now come forward afterwards for us to have access to the full range of American educational institutions supported by governments and our own tax dollars. So we know that the struggle is recent and it continues with us. And when we look at Black resistance, it tells us of the victories that can be had for human dignity when we press for it. And so it's an important theme. And I think it's one that, based on examples not only from the diaspora, but also from the continent, that will resonate, I think, with a great many viewers and readers to the Asala programs that you can find on the web, but also to the many other programs you'll find in high schools, in elementary schools, in churches, community centers, in mosques and temples as well, right around the country. I think this is going to be a very exciting thing for this year. And we're already seeing the excitement rise and people are excited to hear about these stories, these programs, these musicals, the dance programs, the various ways that people are deciding to express these stories, and we're already seeing a pretty robust response.
Thank you, Doctor. Now, you're touching on part of the heart of the matter. Despite the continuing struggles, there have been significant strides as well. Not only did we transform from initially a week or a day to now a whole month, but there's also been a name change in the manner that we've been referring to this commemorative day, week, and now month. Talk to us about that transformation, that evolution, those strides, please.
It's interesting because as we talk about the theme of Black resistance, what is inherent in that conceptualization is the fact that there are others who are opposing our progress. But we have to push against some who would oppose our progress. I just mentioned the governor of Florida just a moment ago. We have seen this opposition come from all levels, including very recently the White House. And in past decades, and certainly past centuries, we've seen it from every level of government, from the Supreme Court right through the legislature, as well as the executive branch, not to exclude the military. So we have seen a broad level, but we've seen victories. We've seen a changing of the regime. We've seen an advancement of the humanity of Africans right across the country and the continent. And it's because we've gone from one day to a week to a month, and some of us pressing for a year, that we should be always engaged in the reflection and the study of our history and our story. So you've seen some of this push because it has become more broadly incorporated, not just as a singular moment, but as a way of living, that we would embrace respect and dignity for the story of Africans in the United States and Africans in the diaspora and the world right through our daily lives. And
Thank
so
you,
I
Doc.
think as we're pushing forward, yes.
Thank you so much. We're running out of time, unfortunately. As we draw to a close, you mentioned that there are a number of activities lined up for this month. Could you touch on those in broad strokes, please?
In very broad strokes, and let me apologize a little bit for my excitement on the matter. Maybe I'm a
Don't
little
apologize,
long-winded to
please,
some of
Doc.
your viewers. We see very often, because we've taken advantage of virtual technology, many of our programs are being broadcast right on the web, just right there. So we're seeing lectures, we're seeing a lot of cultural programs. So we'll see drumming, we'll see dancing, the interplay of the two as a way of telling stories. You're going to see some musical programs in terms of people having songs as well as musical theater. But there's a great deal of lecture. Let's be honest. There's a great deal of lecture and discussions that are happening. We're excited about what we're seeing, and it appears from the early days there's a receptive public, very captivated by this topic of Black resistance and understanding how it is parlayed into the accessing rights, opportunities, and privileges now right around the world. So it's an exciting topic.
Doc, thank you for your time. Thank you for your continued commitment to Good Morning Namibia, and enjoy all the activities and festivities around Black History Month.
It has been quite a while since I've been together with you, so I'm very happy to be back with you. Thank you for the time together, and good morning, Namibia.
Thank you. The avid political analyst, Dr. Cedric McCay, talking to us all the way from the US about Black History Month, this year commemorated under the theme Black Resistance.